I assume, or I know that some types of thoughts still can be really sticky for you, still can make your body feel sensitized and give you the urge to do something to make it go away. So first, do you want to talk more about some of the content that you've gotten through and what your process was like to overcome some of your OCD?
Yeah, I think most of my content like revolves around harm. So harm to myself, harm to others, or like harm just because like I didn't fulfill like obligations, I guess, or that was negligent in some way. So I think that's like how most of my content has like manifested. And I would say current content that I have is around like HIV and other infectious diseases, but mostly HIV that's most prominent. And I will either think that I'm getting it, like it alternates kind of between thinking that things that I do will give it to me and then change my life and let down those people that like are close to me, or that I have it somehow and then I'm going to give it to people that are around me that I care about and that will harm them. So that's kind of, I would say, my latest content that's most active.
Okay, and how can you tell that it's active? Like when you have, what types of life situations trigger that fear, and then what do you do in response?
I think I can tell it's active because it occupies a lot of my brain most of the day. So it's kind of always in the back of my head as far as like if I, use the bathroom or something, it's there. If I just sitting in classroom after and think, I'm just trying to focus on other things, that's kind of like peppering me with thoughts that what if this happened? What if that happened? What if you were exposed to this? What does that mean? What would that be like? So definitely I can tell it's active because it takes up such a large portion of my like active thoughts for most of my waking hours, even if it's not actually what's exposing me to the thing that's triggering me, it's thoughts around that experience that happened, maybe 3 hours ago or something.
Yeah, really well said. And can you tell what maintains it? So if rather than the thoughts themselves being a threat, it's the feeling of uncertainty that you have about the thoughts. But actually, let's clarify that for a second. Can you tell, so typically OCD is maintained both by beliefs that certain types of thoughts or content areas are threats, or they are something, a problem to solve, something to figure out, and or it's maintained by intolerance of the feeling of uncertainty. So that would be something like, I don't care whether or not this thought is true. I just want to do my compulsion or my avoidance to make the sensations and the feelings go away because I either don't want to tolerate them right now, or I'm afraid they're going to get worse later, and I'm afraid that I can't tolerate that later. So those two different, either being stuck in content or difficulty tolerating the distress that comes with OCD, can both maintain OCD. Do you want to say more about your experience with either or both of those concepts?
Yeah, I think they're both prominent. I think when I first got this HIV content, or when it was most prominent for me, it was like over a trip I went on with some friends and had really prominent content that somehow I'd been exposed to it. And that was very distressing to me for like a long period of time, or a relatively long period of time, like a month. And it was really hard for me to eat and function and do everything that I'm used to doing. And so that experience has made it difficult for me to have this content sometimes exist because I know how painful it was before. And so it makes me feel like, I kind of want to avoid it. And when sensations come up, I want to just get reassurance. And by doing compulsions, because I know how painful it was and disruptive to my life, that this content was to me months ago. But then also, like, if I'm well rested and feeling willing, I guess, like, I woke up on the right side of the bed, I will be able to do exposures around that instead. So not checking with people, to see like, hey, would this have been something that would have exposed me to this? Not Googling things like symptoms or exposure situations. And I find myself like, acute to me is if like I feel really strongly like I need to get tested. Like that's something that Maggie has helped me kind of like put an ultimatum on, that like that's not okay for me to do, then that's something that I don't want to start going down that spiral of like feeling like I need to get checked every day, or after every time I use the restroom or something. So that kind of thinking has helped me too, because that's a cue sometimes where if I start feeling like all those sensations you were talking about earlier, and then I feel like an urge to go get tested, that's a good cue to me that like I'm sensitized right now, like, and I need to use other strategies that Maggie's talked about to like kind of not brace against them.
Yes.
Or do
Wonderful.
get reassurance.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is when you first got this content, you felt really terrified. You started to do a lot of compulsions, and the way you got stuck was really painful. It wasn't just lots of worry and thinking about it, but it was also a lot of physical compulsions, and then it started impacting your everyday life. So how much, like, you were having trouble eating, you were having trouble sleeping, it was hard to concentrate. Does that fit your experience?
Yeah, and just kind of going to like the worst possible case scenario, like, oh, if I were to have this, this would change my life in this way, and this way, and this way. And, you know, kind of just the more that vivid that those thoughts got, the more that I needed to brace against them and the more probable that they seemed. So, yeah, it just kind of became a cyclical thing of like, then I would feel less ability to function. And then